Hi, I'm Marston, and I wish this story wasn't mine. At 2:07 a.m., I got a call from my parents, shaking, crying, begging me to come. They were at the police station, beaten, accused, humiliated by my sister-in-law. And my brother? He stood beside her. Not them, not me. He looked me in the eye and said he believed her. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was how calm she was, how ready, like she planned every second of it. So how do you fight someone who's already rewritten the truth before it even happened? That night broke something in me. But maybe, just maybe, it also woke something up. What would you do if the people you trusted most turned their backs when you needed them the most? I had just stepped through my front door when it happened. It was close to midnight, the kind of late where the house feels too still, like everything has already gone to sleep without you. I dropped my keys on the entry table and loosened my tie. The drive back from a long meeting in Fort Worth had drained whatever energy I had left. I was ready to wash my face, maybe sit for a minute in the quiet, and call it a night. Then my phone buzzed. Dad. That alone tightened something inside my chest. My father never called at this hour. A late call from him always meant one thing, and never a good thing. I wiped my palm against my slacks and answered. His voice shook. I hadn't heard that sound from him since I was a kid. Son, your mom and I were at the police station. For a moment, I didn't say anything. The room felt smaller. Dad's breath hitched. She hit us. Solara. She hit your mother first, then me. And when the officers came, she told them we attacked her. Your brother took her side. I heard Mom crying in the background, soft, like she didn't want to make noise. My father's tone had always been steady, even in the worst storms our family had seen. But right then, it sounded cracked, uneven, almost ashamed. Everyone believes her, he whispered. My heartbeat slowed, then steadied into something sharper. I didn't raise my voice, didn't pace, didn't let fear take the wheel. Years of dealing with the fallout of other people's messes had trained me well enough. Which station? Who took the report? What exactly did she say? What did officers ask you? Did you sign anything? They tried to answer, but their words tripped over each other. It sounded like humiliation more than confusion, like they had been spoken to in a way no older couple should ever be spoken to. Something in me pulled tighter, the old memory of always being the youngest, always being the last one they called when things fell apart. I grabbed my jacket again, locked the house behind me, and headed for the truck. The night air was cold enough to sting, but it kept me awake. The drive to the station cut through empty roads and long stretches of quiet neighborhoods. I kept my hands steady on the wheel, though my jaw was set, the way it got when I didn't want anger to show. Every mile closer brought back pieces of the past I usually kept tucked away. Darvin had always been quick to believe whoever he was with. It was a pattern, almost predictable. He'd fall for someone who needed defending, then push the rest of us aside like we were interruptions. But Solara, she had perfected it. In public, she was warmth and charm, shaking hands, complimenting everyone. Behind closed doors, she could slice you down to size with a comment so casual no one else caught the blade in it. I noticed. I always noticed. And I learned to stay out of her way. The station came into view, its fluorescent lights spilling onto the pavement. I parked and took a long breath before stepping out. Inside, the air was cool and dry, the kind of cold that settles into the walls. A couple of officers typed behind their desks. Phones rang somewhere deeper in the building. My parents sat in the far corner, close together, looking smaller than I'd ever seen them. Mom's eyes were swollen, and she held something tight in her palm, hiding it like it was the only solid thing she had left. I walked to the counter. The duty officer looked up. Officer Bram Kendrick. I'd seen him around town before. His face shifted the moment he recognized me. The change was instant. Color drained from his cheeks. He stood so quickly, his chair slid back. Sir, I'm sorry. I had no idea who you were. Every other officer nearby went still, like they were waiting to see what I would do. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't lean in. I just said, "Let me see the report." He hesitated for half a second, then pulled the file. The moment I read the first lines, I knew Solara had crafted it with intention. She knew how to write a story that made her look cornered, fragile, terrified. And Darvin's signature sat under it, rushed, uneven. I went to my parents. I knelt beside them so they didn't have to look up. Dad slowly opened his hand. A 1964 silver coin rolled into my palm, warm from his grip. He'd given it to me when I was a boy, told me to keep it as a reminder to stand tall when others tried to push me down. I didn't ask why he brought it tonight. I understood. "I'm here now," I told them. I stood and turned toward the counter. "Bring Solara out," I said. "I want to hear her version from her own mouth." The room didn't move. My words had sunk into the walls like lead. I didn't blink. I just kept my eyes on Officer Kendrick, waiting. He nodded once, stiffly, then walked back toward the hallway behind the booking desk. Every step echoed more than it should have. A door opened, and then Solara walked out. She didn't walk like someone who'd just been in a confrontation with two elderly people. No limp, no flinch. She walked like someone entering a theater stage. Her hair was loosely tied back, just enough strands falling around her face to look unintentional. Her mascara had smudged slightly beneath her eyes, but not in a messy way. Just enough to give the illusion of tears wiped in a hurry. She hugged her arms across her chest like she was cold, though the station was warm. Then she saw me. Her eyes flicked for half a second, then softened. "Marston." Her voice trembled. "I didn't expect you'd come." She tilted her head. Her body curled inward a bit, like prey, waiting for sympathy. "I figured someone should," I said evenly. Solara stepped forward slightly. I didn't want any of this. I just wanted peace." She turned toward Officer Kendrick, deliberately loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "I never wanted trouble. His parents came at me first." Kendrick's eyes darted toward me, unsure. I didn't move. Solara lowered her voice, just for me. "I told them to leave us alone. They wouldn't." Her tone was soft, like she was confiding in me, but her eyes, sharp, calculating. I said nothing, just watched. Her breathing was steady, too steady. She'd rehearsed this, every head tilt, every pause. I've seen it before, from clients, from people trying to manipulate their way out of consequences. They use emotion like it's currency. She was buying herself space, buying the benefit of the doubt. "Solara," I said, voice level, "you hit them." She gasped, sharp, audible, practiced, like I'd just thrown something at her. "I defended myself," she snapped, then took a half step back. "They came at me, both of them. They were screaming. They lunged." She turned to the officer again, louder now. "They attacked me first." Kendrick shifted uncomfortably behind the desk, rubbing the back of his neck. His mouth twitched like he wanted to say something, but didn't. And then the door behind me burst open. Darvin. He moved like a man already angry, like he'd been simmering since the phone call and came here not for answers, but for a fight. He didn't look at me, didn't look at Mom or Dad. He saw Solara. He rushed over to her, grabbing her shoulders gently, searching her face. "What did they do to you?" he asked, voice cracking with urgency. She fell into his chest like a collapsing building. She started crying instantly. No slow build-up, just tears on command. "I was terrified," she whispered against his shirt, but loud enough to reach all of us. I could feel the shift in the room. Even Kendrick was retreating into silence. Darvin looked at me like I was the cause of it all. "You're here to clean up for them again?" he snapped. "They went too far this time, Marston. This is beyond excusable." Behind him, our father tried to stand. His legs wobbled, and he caught the side of the chair. Lorene reached for Darvin gently. "Darvin, we would never—" He pulled away from her touch like it burned. "Mom, stop. Just stop. I've heard enough." The words landed hard. She sat back, silent. I stepped forward. My voice wasn't raised, but it carried weight. "Darvin, you're reacting to a version of events you haven't verified." He turned toward me, his face tight. "I don't need to verify anything. I trust my wife." Of course, always the same pattern. Believe first, defend second, question never. I didn't react. I didn't let it pull me down. Officer Kendrick cleared his throat and gestured for me to follow him toward the edge of the room. Once we were out of earshot, he leaned in. "Off the record, this whole thing smells wrong," he said under his breath. "She filed first, knew exactly what to say. But your parents, they looked blindsided. She was in control from the minute she walked in." "Can you say that on record?" I asked quietly. He shook his head. "Not yet. But I can tell you we're watching closely." I nodded once. "Appreciated." We turned back toward the others. Solara had slid one arm around Darvin's waist, her face buried in his chest. "I just want to go home," she said, loud again. "I'm terrified." She turned her eyes on me, direct, unblinking. It wasn't fear, it was a challenge. She was waiting for me to lose it. To yell, to accuse, to give her something she could point at and say, "See, he's unstable too." But I didn't move. I kept my voice even. "You'll talk to me tonight, alone." The whole station froze. Solara stiffened. Her expression faltered for just a heartbeat. Then, just above a whisper, she said, "You're smarter than they told me." She smiled in a way that told me the night was far from over. I didn't return it. I tilted my head slightly toward the hallway behind us, the one that led to the smaller interview rooms, quiet, away from wandering eyes and ears. She understood. No need for words, just like she wanted. As we walked, I could feel the silence around us folding in. The station felt like it had shrunk. I caught a glimpse of my father rubbing his forehead and my mother staring into her lap, her lips pressed thin. Darvin refused to even look in my direction. That was fine. I wasn't doing this for him. The hallway was dimmer, colder, the kind of quiet that makes every breath feel too loud. Solara walked ahead, but just barely, enough to make it look like I was following her. She pushed open a door without hesitation and stepped inside. I paused, looked around, no cameras I could see, then followed her in and shut the door. She was already different. The tears? Gone. Shoulders back. Chin lifted. Her hands no longer wrapped around herself like before. She wasn't shaking. In fact, she seemed energized. "I was wondering how long it'd take you to ask for this," she said softly. I didn't sit. I stood near the door, arms crossed. I didn't plan on staying long. She leaned against the wall, casual, like this was some kind of reunion. You always show up when they call you, don't you? She said, almost amused, still trying to clean up their messes. There was no venom in her voice, just precision. She wasn't trying to insult me. She was cutting where she knew it would sting. My mouth stayed shut, but I felt it hit, low in the gut, like an echo from a long way back. Thanksgiving, 10 years ago. Darvin had gotten into it with the neighbors after drinking too much, threw something, broke a fence. Words were exchanged. Police got called. Everyone had been panicked, except me. I was the one who stepped forward, told the officers it had been a misunderstanding, took the heat, told them I'd handle the damage. Later that night, no one thanked me. My mom made pie like nothing had happened. My dad turned on the game. Darvin disappeared with Solara. Nobody ever brought it up again. Invisible. Useful. That was my role. You think staying calm makes you strong, she went on, stepping slightly closer. But it doesn't. Calm men are easy. They swallow it all. They keep swallowing until they drown in it. She let that sit, watched me. You've been doing that for decades, haven't you, Marston? It wasn't a question. I breathed through my nose. Slow. Even. I wasn't going to give her the reaction she wanted. Not yet. She kept going. You know what Darvin told me once? She said, looking up like she was recalling something sweet. That you were the fixer. That you cleaned up without complaint. That you were the one they could count on not to explode. He said that like it was a compliment. Her tone twisted slightly. But you and I both know what it really is. You're easy to use. I could feel the pressure building in my chest. Not anger. Not yet. Just the heat of old truths resurfacing. Then she slipped. Or maybe she didn't. I know how your family works, she said. Darvin tells me everything. Everything. Or everything she wanted him to believe he was telling. It wasn't hard to predict what they do, she continued. They always trust the wrong people. Her lips curled, just enough to register as a smirk. They did trust the wrong people. They trusted her. And so did Darvin. I took a small step toward her. You think this is a game? I asked. She shrugged. No, this is survival. A memory surfaced, a cold one. Years ago, I'd walked past the kitchen late at night. Solara was on the phone with Darvin, pacing in the dark. I heard her say, "Your father doesn't respect my tone." At the time, I brushed it off. Darvin always dated women who needed to feel defended. It was just another moment. But now it felt like the first test, the first manipulation, a rewrite of something harmless into something threatening. And no one questioned it. Not then. Not now. I watched her closely. Her body language was too relaxed. She was sure she had control. Why my parents? I asked. She paused. Not long, but enough. They needed to be reminded of their place, she said coolly. Your family worships politeness, appearances. I don't. I deal in truth, even if it's ugly. That wasn't truth, I said. She raised an eyebrow. It felt true to me, and that's what people believe. That's when I heard it. Inside myself. A shift. A click. She wasn't trying to win tonight. She wasn't trying to explain or reconcile. She was building a new version of reality, and this wasn't impulsive. This was strategy. A plan. How long have you been preparing for this? I asked quietly. She didn't answer, but her smile said enough. I stepped closer. So close, I could see every detail in her eyes. You planned more than this, I said under my breath. What comes next? Her smile didn't fade when I stepped back. If anything, it grew. Wider, more certain. That grin wasn't about victory. It was a signal. A quiet trumpet blast in a war she'd been orchestrating long before tonight. I heard footsteps before I saw them. Officer Kendrick appeared at the edge of the hall, holding a thin folder in one hand. His mouth was drawn tight, like he'd just bitten something sour. "Mr. Hale," he said, nodding to me, "I think you should see this." I didn't move yet. I just looked him in the eye. His shoulders shifted, barely, but enough to tell me something was wrong. When I took the folder, Solara made no move. She stood a few feet away, still watching, now with mild curiosity, like she already knew what was inside. I opened it slowly. Typed on the top page was a witness statement, neat, formatted, signed. It read, "I observed Warren Hale and Lorene Hale physically confront Solara Hale in an aggressive manner. They appeared to lunge at her, causing her to cry out for help." The name at the bottom nearly made me laugh. Rowan Klein. I blinked once, then again. My brain didn't accept it. Rowan hadn't been anywhere near this house. Not tonight. Not in the last 6 months. He lived over an hour away. I looked up. Kendrick must have seen it in my face. "I thought you'd want to verify that," he said under his breath. Solara's voice chimed in, delicate, almost trembling. "Oh, someone saw it?" She placed a hand over her chest like she couldn't believe it. "I didn't think anyone would defend me." It was too polished. Even the timing of her words was rehearsed. Just enough to draw sympathy from anyone listening. And yet, she glanced my way, just once, to see if the blow landed. Lorene's voice, quiet and cracked, came from behind me. "Why, would Rowan lie?" I turned, just in time to see my mother lean forward, her eyes searching. Warren was pale, his hand clutching the armrest of the waiting bench. I knelt beside her, taking her shaking hands in mine. "Don't focus on that right now, Mom." But in my head, the storm was growing. Then came Darvin. He stormed across the room like a man on fire and snatched the folder from Kendrick's hands. "See?" he shouted, waving it toward our parents. "It's not just Solara saying it. There's a statement, a witness." Solara moved beside him like they were magnetized. He put a protective arm around her shoulder. She leaned in, just enough to look fragile. "You've always thought you were better than her," he snarled, glaring at Warren. "But tonight proves you're not." Warren's head bowed. Lorene's lip trembled. "You weren't there," I said, voice low. "None of you were." "I don't need to be," Darvin snapped. "I trust my wife." He said it like it was a badge of honor. But all I heard was the same tired echo of childhood. Darvin throwing his loyalty behind the loudest voice in the room. I stood, slowly. "I need to speak with Rowan myself," I said. "No one's stopping you," Darvin barked, "but don't you dare spin this into some conspiracy." He didn't realize. He was repeating Solara's words almost verbatim. Then came the phone. It rang once, then again. Kendrick moved to answer, gave a half-curious glance, and picked up. He listened, his brow furrowed. After a moment, he held the receiver toward me. "It's Imelda Kraus," he said. "She insists on speaking with you." I didn't want to, but I took the call. "Marston," came her voice, sharp as vinegar. "I warned everyone about your parents years ago. They never respected boundaries. And now this. Assault?" Her tone wasn't questioning. It was condemnation, a sentence already passed. "She called me hysterical," Imelda continued, "and I told her. Finally, someone sees what I've been saying." I pulled the phone away and ended the call without another word. My mother had heard every syllable. Her face crumpled. Warren reached for the receiver, but I stopped him. "No more tonight," I said. The realization hit me hard. Solara hadn't just acted tonight. She'd planted this story. Not hours ago. Not yesterday. Weeks. Maybe longer. Seeding it through the family. One phone call at a time. And now it was blooming. I turned toward her. You set this up before you laid a hand on them. She tilted her head, that smile returning in half measure. People believe what fits their fears, she said softly. She didn't have to explain. Darvin feared being wrong. Imelda feared losing control. The others feared tarnished reputations. And Solara? She just handed them the story they needed. Darvin stepped between us again, protective and blind. That's enough, he said. Marston, you're not helping. Behind him, Solara leaned in and whispered, just loud enough for the officers nearby to hear, Please, don't leave me alone with him again. She wrapped her arms around herself, a portrait of trembling innocence. One glance toward Kendrick, and I saw his jaw tighten. The picture was being painted, one stroke at a time. But I didn't argue. Instead, I walked to my parents and helped them to their feet. They looked smaller now, both of them, tired in a way I hadn't seen before. Warren's voice barely rose above a whisper. Are we going home? Yes, I said. We're leaving this room. Kendrick walked with us, a silent escort. He didn't speak, but the way he opened the door, like it was the only thing he could offer, told me he understood. We passed Solara on the way out. Just as I stepped through the threshold, her voice floated behind me, almost gentle. This isn't the worst part. Her voice carried across the lobby just as I stepped through the glass doors into the parking lot. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. That sentence wasn't meant for conversation. It was a warning, a promise. The night air hit like a slap. Cold, sharp, laced with that dry Texas bite that settles in your lungs and makes your ribs ache. Behind me, the doors hissed shut with a final click. Lorene's hand gripped my arm tighter, her pace slowing as we reached the edge of the lot. Warren walked beside her, silent, each step slower than the one before. The halogen lights overhead buzzed quietly, casting long shadows across the cracked pavement. Then I heard my name. Marston. It was barely a whisper. I turned. Warren's face had gone pale, and his knees suddenly buckled under him. Dad! I lunged forward just in time to catch him before he hit the concrete. Lorene let out a small, cracked scream, reaching down to steady him. Oh my God, Warren! Officer Kendrick, who had just exited behind us, rushed over, crouching beside me. I've got him, I said, cradling my father's upper body as Kendrick pulled a penlight from his vest and checked his pupils. What's his medical history? Kendrick asked quickly, voice low but focused. Does he have a heart condition? I looked at my mother. She froze. Her eyes dropped. Then she nodded. He never told you, she murmured. Not even you, Marston. He didn't want you to worry. Kendrick pressed 2 fingers against Warren's neck. Pulse is erratic. He needs to lie down. Do you have your vehicle nearby? I nodded toward my SUV, parked just 2 rows over. I'll help him up, I said, forcing calm into my voice as I supported Warren's weight. Kendrick took the other side, and together we eased him up and half-carried, half-walked him across the lot. Solara stood just inside the station door, watching. Her arms folded loosely over her chest like she was just taking in the scene. She wasn't smiling, but there was a stillness in her body I'd seen before, the kind that comes from knowing exactly how far ahead you are in the game. When our eyes met, she stepped behind Darvin. He didn't look at Warren. Not once. He was turned completely toward her, murmuring something to her under his breath like a bodyguard whispering updates. It hit me like ice. We reached the SUV. I opened the back door and helped Warren inside, laying him gently against the seat. Lorene climbed in after him, brushing his forehead, murmuring to him in a stream of shaky reassurance. Kendrick handed me a folded sheet of paper. "This is my direct number," he said quietly. "I'm not supposed to give it out, but if things escalate..." "I understand." He stepped back without another word. I settled into the driver's seat. The keys felt cold in my palm. Silence. Then Lorene's voice, soft and cracking. "We didn't want to call you. We really didn't. We thought we could handle it. Like always." I didn't say anything. She wasn't blaming me, but her words cut deeper than anything Solara had said. They had tried to protect me, even tonight, and I hadn't been around enough to notice how bad it had gotten. I reached over, grabbing Warren's phone from the cup holder where he dropped it earlier. The screen lit up. Just a quick vibration, a new message. I meant to silence it, but the banner stopped me cold. "Solara, 4:12 p.m. We need to talk tonight. Don't ignore this." I turned to my mother. She'd seen it too. Her hand went to her mouth. "She was here," she whispered. "Before you came. She showed up. Said she needed to talk to your father alone." I looked at Warren. His eyes fluttered open for a moment, and he nodded slowly. "She said she had things to say about you, about Darvin. She told us we'd ruined everything. And then, when your mother asked her to leave, she started yelling, accusing us, like she was waiting for a reason." Everything clicked. She had set this in motion long before the phone call. She provoked them, created the story before the scene even unfolded. I gripped the steering wheel. My knuckles turned white. Every instinct screamed for me to drive straight back to that building, to pull the curtain down on her show. But I didn't. Instead, I breathed in, slow and deep. I thought of my father lying behind me, his heart faltering. My mother holding herself together with strands of dignity fraying in her fingers. And the decades they'd spent absorbing everyone else's storms just to keep the roof from caving in. I couldn't afford to react. I needed to outthink her. "I'm going to fix this," I said aloud. My voice didn't tremble. Lorene looked at me, eyes wide. "All of it," I repeated. I turned the key. The engine hummed quietly. Then my phone buzzed in the console, just once. A notification flashed across the screen. Voicemail, Rowan Klein. 1:18. And I frowned. Rowan never called this late. Hell, he barely called at all. I reached for the phone. I hit play. And Rowan's first trembling words made my blood run cold. "Marston, I'm sorry. I didn't know what else to do." His voice came through the speaker like a crack in a frozen lake. Fragile. Breaking in slow motion. The car fell into silence. Only the ticking engine and Warren's shallow breaths reminded me the night hadn't stopped spinning. "I wasn't at your parents' house. I swear it. I haven't seen them in months." I tightened my grip on the steering wheel, staring straight ahead, headlights casting pale cones into the dark stretch of road before us. Solara came to my work. Tuesday. Said she had proof I'd violated probation. Photos, she claimed. She talked real quiet, never raised her voice, but it was like she already knew what buttons to push. He paused, exhaling, voice cracking. She said if I didn't sign the witness form, she'd send it all in. Told me to think about my daughter, how one call could take her father away again. Lorene let out a quiet gasp. I didn't look at her. I panicked. I signed it. I know I shouldn't have. but she made it sound like I had no choice. I could hear his guilt, raw and clumsy. "I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean to get your parents into this. I didn't mean to get you into this. I just..." Another breath. Quieter now. "She told me not to call you, that if I did, I'd regret it." The message cut off, abruptly, mid-breath, like he dropped the phone or someone else had entered the room. Either way, it ended in silence that buzzed louder than any scream. My mother's hand covered her mouth. Her shoulders shook beside me, and I didn't know if it was crying or just the aftershock of too many things too fast. Warren whispered, barely audible, "She trapped him, like she tried to trap us." That sound, his voice stripped of its usual weight, hit something deep in my chest. It was the first time I'd ever heard my father sound powerless. I'd grown up watching him keep it together for everyone, calm during crises, quiet when wronged, even when people talked down to him at church, at family gatherings. He never flinched. And now, here he was, slumped in the seat behind me, betrayed by his own silence. Solara had weaponized it all. She'd picked off the people least likely to fight back. She'd chosen the soft-spoken ones, the weary, the polite. She didn't go after me first. No. She warmed the water slowly, and it was boiling now. I reached for my phone without saying a word. My fingers moved on instinct. Thumbprints and passwords. First, I saved the voicemail in 3 places: my internal storage, my cloud account, and an encrypted folder linked to my work server. Next, I drafted a private email. Subject line, "In case of escalation." I attached the audio file, added a brief log of the night's events, and blind copied it to a personal backup. Then I hit record on my voice app. "This is Marston Ellery," I said evenly, eyes still on the road ahead. "It's currently 1:47 a.m. I'm recording this in the presence of my parents after a series of events that began earlier tonight." I narrated everything. From the moment I received the call, to Solara's manipulations, to Rowan's voicemail. Every name, every timestamp, every detail. I finished and locked the recording behind a new passcode. Not because I expected to lose my phone, but because I knew now I was being watched. I started the car. No one said anything as we pulled away from the station. The building shrank behind us in the rear view, glowing faint and artificial in the distance. I passed a familiar turn, then eased us onto the back roads. The ones that curved through the quiet neighborhoods we used to drive through after late church potlucks or holiday dinners. Roads where Dad used to quiz me on stop signs, where Mom used to hum along to the radio. Now it was just the hum of tires on pavement. Lorene leaned against Warren's shoulder. His hand trembled slightly as it rested in hers. Everything in that car felt smaller tonight, weighed down. Even time moved differently, like it was holding its breath. I kept my eyes forward, because if I looked in the mirror too long, I might lose it. And I couldn't afford that. Not now. She thinks I'm still the same. Still the one who fixes quietly, who nods, absorbs, moves on. She's counting on me to stay predictable. But that version of me died somewhere back in that station. And the man driving this car, he wasn't swallowing anything else. She's escalating because she thinks we're all too passive to fight back. But I've seen this kind of play before, just never so personal. This wasn't impulse. This was choreography. And I intended to flip the script. As I slowed near the turn for my parents' street, I spotted headlights behind us. Not close enough to tailgate. Not far enough to be a coincidence. Same silver sedan Solara and Darvin left in. I didn't say a word to my parents. I just let my foot hover over the brake, because now I knew. They followed us home, and I knew that was no coincidence. Their headlights crawled slowly into the gravel pull-off at the edge of my parents' yard, angling just enough to wash the front porch in sterile, glaring white. It was like a searchlight, hunting, not arriving. Behind me, I felt my father stiffen. He shifted in his seat, gripping the door handle like it might anchor him. "She followed us," he murmured. "Why?" I didn't answer right away. My eyes were on the mirror, watching as the car idled, then eased to a stop just beyond the mailbox. Because she isn't done. That was the only thing that made sense. I put the SUV in park and stepped out, leaving the door ajar so I could still hear my parents if they called. The cold air wrapped around me like a dare, cutting through my shirt. I heard the wind whip across the nearby fields, dry grass brushing like whispers. Then came the click of a car door. Solara stepped out slowly, one leg first, like she was arriving for a performance. Her coat hung open despite the chill, her phone already up, screen glowing. She angled it toward us as if she were filming a news segment. "So this is where you're hiding," she said loudly, each word dipped in syrup. "After attacking me?" The phone lens followed her voice, and she tilted it upward to include the house, the porch, the quiet sky, like she was building evidence for a future audience. Warren opened the passenger side door but didn't rise. He was too stunned. Lorene stepped out shakily. I instinctively moved between her and Solara. "Solara," I said flatly, "turn around, go home." She smiled like she'd been expecting that line. "Oh, Marston, you should really work on how you speak to women, especially in front of your mother." She kept filming. Another door opened behind her. Darvin. He moved slower, his shoulders hunched, but not from cold. He looked like a man exhausted by belief, by the weight of holding up someone else's story too long. He walked up behind Solara, but didn't stand next to her, just close enough to nod when she said, "It's scary how violent he gets, right?" Then he looked at our parents. "Mom, Dad?" His voice cracked, but he forced the words out. "You shouldn't have laid hands on her." Lorene staggered like he'd slapped her. She reached for the porch railing to steady herself. Warren spoke, his voice rough with disbelief. "Son, you saw what she did. You were there. You—" "I saw enough," Darvin cut in. "I believe my wife." Those words sat heavier than any fist. I turned back to Solara, forcing myself to keep my voice level. "You followed us from the station. That's harassment. And now you're trespassing." She laughed, but it wasn't real. "Oh, please. I'm documenting for my safety. We both know what you're capable of." She took a few steps forward. I held still, breathing steady. "Push me," she whispered. "Just once. That's all I need, hero." Her tone flipped. Too low for the phone's mic to catch. The venom was in the undercurrent, not the words. Then she poked my chest. A single finger, fast and sharp. "Marston, stop threatening her," Darvin shouted behind her, exactly on cue. The trap was so clear now I could taste it. Solara shifted the phone directly toward me and began to tremble, tears welling on command. "He's scaring me. He's unstable. Someone help me." Darvin moved in, like a stage actor hitting his mark. He wrapped his arm around her shoulders, eyes darting toward the house as if checking for witnesses. I said nothing, did nothing, and that's when she slipped. A flicker of irritation crossed her face. I stepped back and raised my hands slowly, palms open. "You're not getting what you came for. Not tonight." Her nostrils flared. "You think this won't get out?" she snapped. "You think the department won't find out how you treat women? The people you intimidate?" Ah, there it was. She wasn't just trying to provoke me physically. She was building a career killer, something she could send in a file, out of context, but enough to start a fire. I stayed where I was. Behind me, Lorene sobbed quietly. "Darvin, why? Why are you doing this to us?" Warren leaned forward, voice rasping. "She wasn't like this when you met her. What happened to you?" Darvin didn't answer. His mouth opened, but nothing came. He looked away, but he didn't let go of Solara's hand. And then, Solara moved toward my mother, phone still recording. "Tell them what you did to me," she said, each word louder than the last. "Tell them how you hit me." She was targeting Lorene now, taunting, pushing her toward a breakdown. I stepped between them again. "You point that camera at my mother one more time," I said, "and I'll press charges tonight." She took one more step forward anyway. "He's threatening us," she shouted. "Get that on video." Her phone jabbed toward my face. I didn't flinch, didn't even blink. Instead, I slowly pulled my own phone from my coat pocket. I hit record. "This is Marston Ellery," I said calmly. "Solara Whitlow followed us from the station. She is now on private property at 2 a.m, attempting to provoke a violent incident." Solara's expression flickered. Just for a second. She realized it. She wasn't the only one documenting. Darvin whispered, "Solara, maybe we should go." She jerked her arm away, furious, but I saw something else too. Hesitation. Because now she wasn't holding all the pieces. Without another word, she spun around and stormed back to their car. Darvin lingered for half a beat. His eyes darted from me, to our father, to our mother. Something trembled in him, like a rope pulled too tight. Then he turned and followed her. The car peeled out, gravel spitting under the tires. I didn't move until the red taillights vanished around the bend. Then I turned to my parents. They were both still standing, but barely. The porch light cast shadows under their eyes that hadn't been there a week ago. They looked aged, like the years had doubled since sunset. We stood in the driveway as the wind picked up again, colder this time, sharper, and I stared down the road where their car had gone, knowing she only left because she had something worse planned. I could feel it in my spine, like the hush before a storm, when even the trees seemed to brace. Inside the house, everything had gone still. The old clock above the fireplace ticked out the seconds like a slow heartbeat. Lorene sat curled in the armchair, her shoulders shaking under a crocheted blanket she must have pulled from the hall closet. Warren stood by the window, not really looking outside, just staring into the dark like he was searching for a time when things made more sense. I checked the locks again, front door, side windows. Motion light in the backyard was still on, catching branches in a nervous sway. The living room smelled faintly of chamomile tea no one had touched. I'd poured it an hour ago, thinking it might help steady them, but this night had burned past any kind of comfort. Then my phone buzzed. Rowan. I hesitated. Not because I didn't want to answer, but because I already knew. Whatever he had to say would shove us even further past the point of return. I stepped into the kitchen and picked up. "Marston," he whispered, voice ragged. "She's making moves. You need to hear this." "Talk." He exhaled hard, then began. I found a folder on her drive, hidden but not encrypted. She must have used my laptop and forgot to log out. It's full of documents she drafted 2 days ago. I didn't interrupt. She had fake statements already written. One says you intimidated a vulnerable woman. Another claims your parents are unstable. Emotional elder abuse. There's even a report draft accusing you of interfering in a domestic police matter. She dated them all before tonight. My stomach tightened. She planned this whole thing. Every inch of it, he said. This wasn't a meltdown. It was strategy. A setup. In the living room, I saw Lorene looking my way. She could tell from my face something new had broken loose. Rowan kept going. I backed them up. I'll send them to you. I haven't told her I saw them. How'd you find them? I asked. She used my phone once, a while back. I think to send something to her attorney. She forgot to sign out of her cloud. I don't think she even realized it synced. His voice cracked. Marston, I think she's done this before. Maybe not to family, but I think this is a pattern. I returned to the living room. Lorene's eyes were already brimming with tears. She wanted to ruin us before anything even happened, she asked, voice barely a whisper. Warren sat heavily on the couch. He didn't say a word, just looked like someone had pulled the foundation out from under him. There's more, Rowan said. Of course there was. She has a witness lined up. Someone tied to your family. She said they'd confirm anything she needed. Said it was the nail in the coffin. I gripped the phone tighter. Who? He said the name. It hit me like a punch. No, I muttered. From the couch, Warren flinched. Lorene gasped like the air had been knocked out of her. Not them, Warren said. Not after all these years. Some wounds don't heal. They scab over and get quiet. But one wrong word peels them wide open again. She's digging into places she has no right to go, I said, staring at the floor. Pulling people into this just because they're bitter. Rowan added, She thinks you'll fold if it's someone from your own past, someone with just enough credibility to poison everything you've built. The living room dimmed further, clouds swallowing the moonlight outside. Lorene said, barely holding it in, We raised our boys with love. How did it end like this? Warren added, Maybe keeping things quiet all these years. Maybe that was our real mistake. Their guilt weighed down the room. I stood up. I'm done reacting to her, I said quietly. We're not playing defense anymore. I opened my phone, saved Rowan's files to 3 separate drives, uploaded the audio logs. Then I opened a secure app I hadn't used in years. The kind of thing you keep for emergencies. I made one call. A woman answered after 2 rings. Marston? I'm invoking the favor. There was silence on the other end. Then, send me everything. I'll take the case, but be ready. She's going to hit back. I ended the call. Then I looked out the front window. Headlights again, just creeping past the house, too slow to be coincidence. Watching. She's still circling, I said. Warren barely lifted his head. I can't believe my own son drove off with her. Lorene wiped her eyes. She's turned him into someone we don't even recognize. I knelt in front of them. That's why we stop her. Not for revenge, for protection. They nodded slowly. I stood, walked to the porch, opened the door. The wind had picked up. Leaves rustled hard against the siding. In the distance, I could hear faint thunder, like a warning rumble. I stepped outside, phone still in hand, eyes scanning the road. I knew Solara wasn't finished, and whatever she had planned next, it was meant to break us. But I wasn't going to wait for it. A ping drew my eyes to the screen. A new message. No name, no number I recognized. Just 6 words. You won't win. I didn't know whether it was a threat or a warning, but I knew exactly who sent it. Still holding the phone, I watched the message fade off the screen, leaving behind that hollow blue glow. The wind outside had eased into a tired breeze, the trees no longer thrashing, just swaying like they too were spent. I didn't go back to sleep after that. None of us really did. I dozed in the armchair, neck twisted at an angle that left me sore. The cushion smelled faintly of lavender and dust. At some point, the sun pushed through the slats in the blinds and landed in strips across the wooden floor. Morning light in Texas always had a way of looking softer than it felt. In the kitchen, I heard the gentle clatter of a spoon against ceramic. Lorene's voice, hushed but steady, drifted in. She was humming something, off-key, fragile, but familiar. I didn't recognize the tune, but I recognized the need behind it. She was trying to bring normal back into the house, one note at a time. I stretched, then stood, and walked in slowly. She had poured 2 mugs of coffee. One already sat across from her, waiting for me. She gave me a faint smile, not quite reaching her eyes. "I don't want to lose another child," she said, almost to herself. Warren stepped in behind me, pulling his robe tighter around his middle. His hair stuck up like it had battled a restless sleep and lost. "But we can't chase him," Warren said. "Not into the place she's pulling him." They weren't angry, just surrendered to what was. I sat down and took the mug. "I'm heading to the county office," I told them. "Today." Lorene looked up. "To do what?" I laid it out clearly, without heat. "I'm filing a harassment report, a stalking log, a sworn statement about everything she's done, with recordings, Rowan's files, time-stamped evidence." Warren nodded slowly. "I'm not doing this to get back at her," I said. "I'm doing it to stop her before she destroys anyone else." The words hung between us. There wasn't anything left to argue. Just then, my phone rang again. Rowan. I stepped outside to take it. His voice sounded steadier this time. "I'm ready." "You sure?" "I've been quiet long enough. I'll testify. I'll hand over everything. I already emailed the documents to both your contact and a secure backup I made." "You did good, Rowan," I said. And I meant it. There was a long pause before he whispered, "I'm scared of her, Marston. But I'm more scared of becoming someone who lets her win." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. When I walked back in, Lorene was holding something small, wrapped in a napkin. She handed it to me like it was something sacred. I unfolded it. An old certificate. My high school award for academic leadership. One I thought had gotten tossed during a move years ago. "I kept it," she said softly. "He wasn't the only one we were proud of." I don't know why that undid me a little. Maybe because so much of my life had been spent trying to hold things together in the background, always the quiet son, the steady one. I went upstairs, showered, and changed into a clean button-down and jeans. Simple. Solid. I gathered the thumb drives, the hard copies, my notes. Everything organized, labeled, chronological. Evidence not born from emotion, but from precision. The ride into town felt slower than usual. Maybe it was the way sunlight made the cracked sidewalks and quiet diners look peaceful. Like nothing was wrong. But I knew better. Sometimes the cruelest wars were fought behind living room walls and closed courthouse doors. At the county legal office, my contact, Emily, a former colleague who now handled private documentation cases, greeted me with a clipboard and a raised brow. "You weren't exaggerating," she said, flipping through the files. "She's been trying to build a case against you for weeks, but it's messy. Yours isn't. We went room by room through the material. She asked questions. I answered simply. There were no embellishments, no emotional flourishes, just truth. Eventually, I signed the final page. She stamped it. The sound echoed in the small office. And just like that, something shifted. It wasn't all gone, but it was no longer mine to carry alone. When I stepped outside, I checked my phone. Still no message from Darvin. Nothing. No apology. No anger. No confusion. Just silence. I'd known he might not come back, but part of me still waited for the sound of his name lighting up my screen. Emily walked out behind me. We'll have a protective order in place by tomorrow morning, she said. She won't be allowed within 100 yards of your parents. For the first time in weeks, I breathed fully. I drove back. The sun had risen higher now, the clouds scattered into streaks. The house looked just like it always had, small, modest, with a wind chime out front that only played when you weren't listening for it. Warren and Lorene were sitting on the porch. Lorene stood when she saw me, hands pressed to her chest, eyes wide with something between relief and disbelief. Warren didn't say much, just placed his hand on my shoulder for a second longer than usual. Before heading in, Lorene handed me the same blanket she'd gripped through the worst of the night. She wrapped it around my arms, but I pulled it gently and draped it over her shoulders instead. You don't have to be afraid anymore, I said. And somehow, that mattered more than anything I'd filed that day. We sat together on that porch. Quiet, still. I knew we might not get Darvin back. Not today, maybe not ever. But as I sat there, their shoulders brushing mine, I realized something deeper. Family isn't about who shares your blood. It's about who stays when things fall apart. I glanced down the road. The same road Solara once drove off on, leaving dust and damage in her wake. But this time, it didn't scare me. The morning air was warm now, and the road just looked like a road. It ends here, I whispered.